run the
federal
DA's
government,
office,
yeah.
yeah. No.
Do you know anything about what he's asking about?
Just vaguely, probably less than he does. But the DA is a county, and DA's separately elected, and you know, they, as I said here, we work closely. The city, especially our police department, works closely with the DEA to. Actually, they come up here and help us break some, you know, heroin and that sort of thing rings. So, you know, we work closely with the DEA, and so we're going to continue that, I hope, because we don't want illegal drugs too much in our city. But I don't know. Those letters, I thought, to the landlords were because the Bush administration, Department of Justice said they don't, you know, that they were going to send out letters to landlords to say that you have an illegal business under the federal government rules.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, I just read some reporting on it that there were some holdovers from the Bush administration who were very active in this, and that the current Attorney General, Eric Holder, has subsequently kind of made it very clear what the policy is.
Well, the paradox is that there's a Schedule I drug, and Schedule I drugs show no medicinal value whatsoever. That's the same category as, I believe, heroin and LSD and many other things, yet opiates, Marinol is a Schedule III. And I just don't understand. And I have to argue with you talking about gateway drugs. And, you know, I have to really disagree with that. You know, that marijuana has been available for children for years. I mean, in the 60s when I grew up, it was there. It's no different today. And dispensaries don't change that. And there was a 13-year-old boy that came to Santa Barbara dispensary that would come with his mother. He had bone cancer. I mean, the doctor gave him a recommendation. Who are we to judge what doctors are recommending? You know, the last phrase of 215.
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
Just basically says, as deemed necessary by a doctor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, we got a bunch of questions we're going to get to. Next up.
Hi, thanks for having this panel. I'm David Pritchett. As a lot of people know, I'm a candidate in the city council election. And the more complex this issue becomes, and Mayor Marty Blum highlighted some of the issues the city council ordinance committee will take up, the more it looks like this will really be decided, say, 6 months from now, with the whole new ordinance committee, potentially. I've talked to people in neighborhoods, and like we saw in the video, there's definitely problems with the existing pot stores and how they're operated, as well as those that follow the rule, which leaves smaller and smaller locations, like along Milpas Street, which is what some of the other people are going to talk about. So what do you all have to say about any tax revenue just being totally consumed by enforcement to tighten up the operations? And as I think the mayor has a good idea, instead of a tax, which gives the city an incentive never to turn down a store, but have a really stiff permit fee because the ordinance has really stiff special regulations, you know, for security and where you smoke and who you sell to and so on. So I think that's a good issue to pursue. And then the real wrench, especially for state political watchers like you, Jerry, is where is it going in state legislation for total legalization, which is a bill out there, or the state may have a tax in the June 2010 election, which if the city has a pot tax would also be in the June 2010 election. So would those conflict? Would it be a tax and then another tax? Anyway, there's a lot swirling around.
Yeah, there is a lot swirling around.
Interesting times.
Assemblyman Tom Amiano from San Francisco has a bill to legalize marijuana. It's quite long. I read the whole thing. It's like 60 pages or something. But it would basically, his argument is a financial argument at the moment that it would generate 1.5 billion or more. There's also, as I understand it, 3 initiatives that are being circulated possibly for the June 2010 ballot, which all sort of differ a little bit, but basically have the same premise of legalizing it. But what about David's question about the distinction on the revenue from the dispensaries, and particularly the question of whether if the city taxes it, it wouldn't provide an incentive to approve each one?
You know, I'm not sure that would be true, but I really favor a cost recovery, fee, making the license fee much higher. Because we will need to enforce the rules around these dispensaries, and it does cost us a lot of money. But that would probably come just into our general fund, but we haven't really had any hearings on that or anything like that. But the tax issue is, to me, very fascinating, because suddenly this is something that is on the it's a type 1 drug, so it's not allowed to be, in the federal government, not allowed to be even prescribed. And yet we're talking about taxing it when we sell it. So it's, to me, it's very, and we're sort of in a transition period trying to figure out how to treat medical marijuana, because most doctors will say, yes, there's a reason to have medical marijuana, but they don't agree that it should just go to any teenager, which is Penny's thing. So how in the world are we going to get it off of that type 1 drug listing and put it on one that makes sense, and then have it just be between the doctor and the patient, which would be absolutely wonderful. I don't know how to make that happen, but that. And then,
Marty, we're not leaving here until we've answered that question.
So all the mayors can just step out of it. That would be wonderful.
I have an idea. It does need to go through a medical type of thing and out of the FDA. It has to be at least rescheduled. Again, I'd like to see it under the Dietary Supplement and Health and Education Act, but it has to be taken out of the context of heroin and LSD, and even things that are less scheduled, like methamphetamine. To me, that's the worst travesty for our children and our culture forever. Yeah. And I think we need to stop. I love this open dialogue because there's a lot of things to be done, but again, we need to take that importance out of marijuana, do what we need to do to find good, safe drug policy, but then concentrate on those things that are just really a travesty to our neighborhoods.
Penny.
May I ask Marty one quick thing? Would that permitting process be retroactive to the places that are already permitted?
What we did before is, if they were in existence in April of 2008, they could stay in existence for 3 years.
So there would be no
but
money
they would have
collected
to go through,
for that.
Right.
And so if you have 12 now,
well, we have one legal one, remember.
Well, yeah. Okay.
We have those 11 that are just there, but
All right, our next question.
Hi, my name is Gustavo Litvin. I have Crohn's disease. I suffer every single day of my life ever since I was diagnosed. Yeah. I was in the ER last time 2 days ago. My entire colon's inflamed at the moment. I'm starting a new flare, so I'm in a lot of pain, but I wanted to come here because it's such an important topic to me. And I wrote an ordinance bill for the city of Goleta to regulate where medical marijuana dispensaries can be, because patients like me and other patients, like I'm going to be in probably in a few weeks, not being able to fight for this, we're suffering, and we can't be waiting around for people to just keep discussing and discussing. I wrote a regulation that says where they can be, how far away from schools they can be, how far away from parks they can be, from other dispensaries, and it just needs to be reviewed. It needs to go to the front of the review committee so that it can get through the process done, because patients like me are suffering, and we can't just be waiting. If you lived one day in my life today, you would want this done today.
No. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks.
And thank you for your question.
Gustavo.
Mark, can you shed some light on the politics of Goleta, where that's going to...
The politics of Goleta?
where that's going to go?
I don't think that makes sense to Goleta. The city council is in favor of regulating. They just want to have nice, thorough regulations. The city staff doesn't know which way to approach it. I think if the city staff was willing to listen to some members in the audience and some dispensary operators, collectives, members, the community, that they could probably find some pretty good regulations that wouldn't cause any problems in the future. It's just...
Is it a political football at the moment? It's just not...
The football's flat, actually. It's really difficult. We rely on them to educate themselves, and some people aren't willing to find the information that is out there. The city of Goleta had 22 months to come up with regulations, and their conclusion was that we created crime, where I've never had any complaints from my neighbors. The biggest problems that I've run into is the city.
But you did say you had a home invasion robbery, right?
That was over 3.5 years ago, which we've had no problems since then. That's actually what justified to the city that I had been operating, because I wasn't behind closed doors. I had called the sheriff's department, explained to them what had happened, who I was, what I was doing, and they were more interested in finding out what I was doing than catching the people that drove away in their car that I saw. after robbing me at gunpoint. So I think the people that are truly being affected by this are the patients.